Okay, good afternoon everybody. Those of you who don't know me, there's a lot of faces here I don't recognise. I'm Em Bird, I'm working in the Department of Strategy and Applied Management. Okay, The Great Escape sounds very intriguing. I'm not sure it's going to live up to that introduction there, but I'll do my best. Why have I called it The Great Escape? I've drawn parallels to this innovation with the Great Escape of World War II. Which, if you remember, sort of started off with a lot of anticipation and expectation of success, but eventually collapsed to a degree and didn't actually end the way the tunnelers expected it to. So that's really an analogy perhaps with this innovation, that we started off with a lot of good expectations that this radical change was actually going to break free from some of the academic regulations and administrative regulations that control us. But at the end of the day, we ended up with pushing the boundary a little bit, but not really breaking free as we anticipated. I think it's probably a story worth telling for that reason, really, that if we are going to be innovators and we are going to do new, exciting things, then it's all very well putting these things together in the classroom, but we're also going to need the administrative and the sort of backup that goes with that to be radical and to actually make these changes. So I think it's a story worth telling as an example where we have tried to push the boundaries with a bit of success, but I'm not claiming too much success. Okay, with that sort of setting the scene, what was the problem? Well, the problem was we had miserable students. We had three skills modules in SAM, which really cut across all the business courses. So level 1, level 2, level 3, we had a skills module, 10 credit skills module. The first year module was largely about academic skills, scholarship, trying to the transition from A levels to university education, trying to give them the scholarship skills they need to study in HE. So that was sort of the year 1 skills module. Year 2 was largely about preparing them and encouraging them to go on placement in year 3, giving them employability skills to apply for placement roles and get out into the workplace. And then the level 3 module was about preparing them for graduate jobs, again about employability. So we had 3 modules. 1 was about scholarship, 2 were about employability. The problem was, as you can see from these miserable faces, the students didn't really like these modules. They couldn't see the relevance of them. The student body was so diverse when it came to employability. The student body was so diverse. We had students who already had a job, had a graduate job in some cases, or were going into the family business, or were going back home overseas. Half the students on the programme are from overseas. So at one end of the spectrum, people that had a fair bit of employability nous in terms of getting a job, and therefore this employability input that we gave them was irrelevant or didn't interest them, didn't engage them. And at the other end of the spectrum, you know, people had no idea what they wanted to do with their careers, and therefore they needed nurturing and sort of encouraging to think about these things. So you had a huge range of needs, if you like, for these skills module. And trying to design modules to hit that diverse range was pretty difficult. And as a result, a lot of them weren't engaged. We weren't getting the outcomes that we expected. When we talked to our employability tutors who were trying to help these students apply for jobs, they were saying that most of them weren't properly prepared. They weren't ready to join the world of work. They didn't have the soft skills, the employability skills that they needed. 3 courses, the assessment instruments at each level was a portfolio. How boring is that? It can get a bit boring putting these portfolios together. Okay, hit the learning outcomes, but only just, and they saw a lot of repetition in the assessment. So we had a problem there. We had issues that we wanted to address. The MEQs weren't brilliant. I mean, the staff involved did their very best they could to actually turn this around, because MEQs are important, as we know. But generally, the qualitative feedback in the MEQs was pretty poor. So, what do we do about this problem? We set ourselves some objectives for change, some things that we wanted to put right. So, student satisfaction obviously was a big one up front. Make the modules less repetitive, more relevant to students, change the assessment somehow. Bring in some vertical integration, something that as a course team we wanted to do as part of the course-based approach to teaching, rather than module by module, trying to knit the thing together. We thought we'd actually try and put in a module that went across all 3 years. We actually took the academic scholarship skills out of the first year module. I'll park that, we put it somewhere else. I won't go into details, I haven't got time for that. But we took the academic, this transition from A-level to undergraduate studies, we took that out of these 3 modules. And we gave ourselves 3 modules that we wanted to link together vertically across 3 years, all about employability. So that was a movement. The soft skills things, as I said, the employability tutors were saying when they started working with students on a one-to-one basis, CV generation, job applications, the students just weren't ready. They didn't have these employability skills that we needed, so we wanted to get that in. Great global graduates, we wanted to address the internationalisation agenda. Half the students were from overseas. The employability work previously had largely been UK-based, hitting the UK graduate market. We wanted to open that up to the global jobs market. So we set ourselves this agenda for change. How do we go about it? We formed a working group. The 3 module leaders at each level. Leanne, who's been working with me on this right from the start, and must acknowledge Leanne's input to this. Leanne, myself, and the employability tutor. So the 3 module leaders, Leanne and myself, and the employability tutor. We started meeting the beginning of the, sort of halfway through the first semester, 2 or 3 meetings, brainstorming really how to hit those objectives. And eventually we came up with what we thought was a big idea. The essence of this was to give choice back to the students. Instead of dictating the indicative content, we would allow students to choose from a menu of CPD activities what they would study. So we put together something like a menu of about 30 workshops that would address these employability soft skills and allow students to pick and mix what they did over the 3 years, deciding when they would do it, how they would do it, and integrate it across, make a level 3 30 credit module that they would get in the final year. So making it, another 5 minutes, okay. Making it pretty easy for students to choose what they wanted to do. So what we had in detail was a CPD approach, largely the same as in industry. Professionals have to keep a CPD log to keep their skills up together. Students would have a similar sort of thing. They choose from this bank of credits. We'd allow 300 in total, not necessarily 100 per year, and students from each of the 3 levels could mix and match. So we'd have first years and second years, first years and third years working together. When we talked to the students about that, they quite liked the idea of that. How do we get approval for this? Because you can imagine that particular proposal gave quite a few problems. And this is what we did. We thought, well, there's no point in us wasting a lot of time working this up into detail if we're not going to get support, we're not going to be able to break through. So we thought we'll go to the top, we'll go and talk to this guy who's got a similar haircut to me, a Deputy Vice-Chancellor, and put it on the table and see what he thought. So Leanne and I went and had an interview with him, put it on the table. This is what he's doing, it's really radical. What do you think about this? He said, oh, great, go for it, Len. Yeah, it's really good. I'll support you in this. This is just the sort of stuff we want to do. Be radical, be different. Employer engagement, internationalisation, it hits all the university's objectives. Yeah, really great, really supportive. So well, go away and see your registrar, tell him it's a done deal, and invite him to think up ways of making it happen. Tell him, you know, I've said it's okay, you can do it, it's a done deal, how can you go about it? So we went and saw the assistant registrar, and he put it on the table and said, yeah, what a good idea, really like to do this. We'll go away and think about how we can do it. A few days went past, so Leanne and I are thinking how we're going to get on with this. I then get called to a meeting with my head of department, social deep and registry, 5 o'clock one night, and walk into the meeting there, sit down, and the registrar says, no deal. Can't handle this, universe can't handle it, so we'd have to do it manually. There is no way this is going to work. But what if? I tried to argue the case, didn't get anywhere. Reasons being, this was where we were trying to break free. They'd only do 110 credits. Because it was going to be a level 3 module, we were taking 10 credits out of the first year. University set up for 120. You can carry 30 credits over in resits, which means they would be progressing with 80. You have to have 90 to progress, so that cut across the rules as well. And in the final year, they'd be doing 140 credits, and we're only set up for 120. So these were the main blockages. So it died a bit at that stage. So what we ended up with, instead of an integrated module, we had to have 3 separate modules, 10 credits each. What we did achieve is we got 3 identical mids, apps word for word identical, apart from the fact that these CPD points are front-end loaded. We wanted more input into employability in the first year so that they were oven ready, if you like, or job ready quicker for their placement year. So we've loaded it this way, despite the fact that they are 10 credits each, which doesn't really stack up from an educational perspective, but half delivered what we wanted to do. So here was the stretch, if you like, in the assessment. Assessments by CPD log, and we've got a draft of what that is. It went through the boss, been approved, and it starts in September. But I think the case is, it's an illustration of what you need to do to actually be radical and to make these sort of innovative changes. I need to acknowledge the other people that have worked on this with me. It's not all my own work, and that's largely it. Have I got time?